Chapter 2, Messages, Journeys, and Dreams. Part 1, A Journey by the Sea. The morning sky was painted in shades of pale gold, the sea stretching endlessly under a gentle sun. Adam had invited Lion on a small trip to the coastal town, a place he claimed would help them escape the noise of the city. She agreed, her heart racing with both curiosity and nervous anticipation. On the train, they sat side by side, the windows framing scenes of rolling fields and clusters of houses. Lion rested her cheek against the cool glass, and Adam leaned closer. "Do you like the sea?" he asked, his voice low. "I love it," she replied softly. "It feels endless, like freedom." When they arrived, the salty breeze greeted them instantly. The harbor was alive with fishermen pulling in their nets, children running along the shore, and seagulls circling the waves. Lion's scarf fluttered in the wind, and Adam reached out, fixing it gently over her shoulder. They walked along the pier, pausing to watch the water crash against the rocks. Lion smiled, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is beautiful," she whispered. "Not as beautiful as you," Adam replied without hesitation. Her cheeks flushed. She tried to laugh off his words, but the warmth of his gaze made her heart skip. They spent hours exploring the old streets near the port, tasting fresh bread from street vendors and sharing small bites of roasted corn. Adam bought her a tiny seashell from an old man's stall. "So you'll always remember this day," he said. By the afternoon, they sat on the sand, watching the horizon melt into shades of pink and orange. Adam leaned back, supporting himself on his hands, while Lion hugged her knees to her chest. "Imagine if life was just this simple," Adam murmured. "Maybe it can be," Lion answered, her voice barely audible. The waves crashed softly, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. That night, on her way home, Lion received his message. Today felt like the beginning of forever. Her smile lingered as she drifted into sleep, her heart carrying the rhythm of the sea. Part 2, Routines of Love. The days that followed were filled with an almost magical routine. Lion would wake to Adam's morning messages. "Good morning, my sunshine. Did you sleep well?" And she would reply, her heart fluttering at the thought of him waiting for her words. At the university, even during lectures, their conversation never stopped. He would send short notes like, "You look too serious today. Smile for me." And she would blush, glancing at her phone before replying, "Maybe I smiled before I even read this." It was as if every small detail of life became brighter through their shared lens. One evening, Adam suggested they visit a quiet park. The air was cool, carrying the scent of blooming flowers. They walked slowly, hand in hand, the silence between them as comforting as their laughter. "Sometimes I think happiness is just sitting like this," Lion admitted. "With the right person, yes," Adam said, squeezing her hand gently. Still, not everything was seamless. There were moments when Adam's phone buzzed and he would step away to answer in hushed tones. When Lion asked, he would brush it off with a smile. Just something for work," he'd say quickly, changing the subject. It wasn't enough to shatter her trust, but it left a quiet mark on her thoughts. Part 3, Nights of Rain and Secrets. The city was alive with the pulse of evening lights. After days of messages and fleeting meetings, Adam invited Lion to spend an evening together in the old quarter. She accepted, with a mix of excitement and nervous energy, dressing in her soft beige sweater and scarf, the kind that made her feel both warm and delicate. The streets were glowing with lanterns and the chatter of strangers. Small cafes spilled laughter into the night air, while the smell of roasted chestnuts lingered at every corner. Adam walked beside her, his hand resting lightly at her back, guiding her through the crowd. "This place has a soul," he said, glancing at the cobblestones beneath their feet. "It feels like the past is still alive here," Lion replied, her eyes catching the flicker of lights reflecting on the wet ground. A drizzle began, gentle at first. People hurried with umbrellas, but Lion tilted her face upward, letting the cool drops kiss her skin. Adam chuckled, taking her hand. "You'll catch a cold." "Maybe," she laughed, "but rain makes me feel alive." They walked together beneath the dim street lamps, their steps falling in rhythm. At a small cafe with steamed windows, Adam stopped and pushed the door open. Inside, the smell of coffee and cinnamon embraced them. A pianist in the corner played a soft melody, filling the room with something almost magical. They chose a table near the window, watching the rain slide down the glass in thin silver lines. Adam leaned forward, his eyes fixed on her. "Do you ever think about what happiness really means?" he asked. "All the time," Lyon answered, stirring her tea, "but tonight I think I know. It's this right now." His smile was slow, deep, as though he wanted to memorize her words. He reached across the table, brushing her fingers. They stayed until the cafe emptied, their laughter mingling with the fading notes of the piano. Time seemed to pause, wrapping them in a bubble of warmth and closeness. When they finally left, the rain had grown heavier. Adam pulled her close beneath his coat, their steps quick but hearts lingering in the moment. The street shimmered with reflections, every puddle a mirror of their happiness. Yet as they reached the corner where they would part ways, Adam's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and for a second his face changed, just a flicker, a tightening of the jaw. He quickly slipped the phone back into his pocket and kissed her forehead. "Good night, Lyon," he whispered. She smiled, but inside unease stirred. The rain washed over her as she walked home, the memory of his sudden change of expression pressing against her thoughts. That night in her journal, she wrote, "Love is perfect in his arms, but sometimes I feel he carries storms I cannot see." Part 4. Shadows Between the Light. The days after their rainy night together felt like a dream. Adam was more attentive than ever. Messages in the morning, voice notes at noon, and gentle reminders for her to eat, study, and sleep. Lyon felt as though the universe had finally given her the piece of love she had longed for. One Saturday, he invited her to his apartment again. This time the air was different, warmer, softer. He had lit a few candles, the glow reflecting on the bookshelves and the framed photographs of distant places he had visited. Lyon noticed how his home carried his presence, tidy yet filled with subtle chaos, as though he lived between order and secrets. They cooked together in the small kitchen, laughing at their clumsy mistakes. Flour dusted her fingers. Adam brushed it off gently, his thumb lingering against her hand. "You make even disasters look beautiful," he teased. "And you make me laugh too much to take anything seriously," she answered, cheeks burning with warmth. Later, they sat on the balcony, overlooking the city lights. Wrapped in a shared blanket, Lyon leaned her head on his shoulder, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. He spoke about his childhood, his dreams of traveling, the books that shaped him. She shared her fears, her ambitions, the little things that made her feel alive. It felt like intimacy, deeper than words. But then, his phone rang again. The sound cut through the quiet night like a blade. Adam's body stiffened. He glanced at the screen, then quickly declined the call. Lyon tilted her head to look at him. "Who was it?" she asked softly. For a second, Adam's eyes darkened, then he forced a smile. "Just work. Nothing important." He kissed her forehead as if to erase the question, but the unease remained. That night, when she returned home, her phone vibrated with his message. "Good night, my heart. I don't want this day to end." She smiled, yet in the back of her mind, the image of his tightened jaw haunted her. Over the following week, Adam was sometimes distant, late replies, brief excuses. Then suddenly, he would return with overwhelming affection, showering her with words and warmth. The inconsistency left her both cherished and confused. One evening, walking home from the library, she thought, "Love is supposed to make me feel safe. So why do I feel like I'm holding something fragile that could break any moment?" In her journal, she wrote, "The more I fall, the more I fear. Adam holds my heart, but maybe he also holds secrets I'm not ready to face."